you to Julie Gavin, and she has a string of titles. She is from the Brody School of Medicine here at East Carolina University. She works with the North Carolina Registry for Brain Health. She's a research program manager out of the Office of Research and slide that over, Graduate Studies. And she is, like I said, she's with the registry, but her title is ECU Regional Site Coordinator. So she has a string of titles. She has a lot of good information, and she has a wonderful smile and a great sense of humor dealing with us and trying to get her the Zoom link today. So Julie, take it over.
Happiness. I hope you're able to hear me. Please let me know if there's any tech issues, hiccups, or quirks along the way. I will try to keep an eye on the chat, but please don't be shy to unmute yourself if you have any questions as we're going along. I'm going to slide this out of the way if I can, hopefully. I'm not sure if that will minimize. Is everyone able to see my screen okay?
Yes.
Wonderful. We are here to talk about holistic brain health research and resources for dementia prevention, which is a topic very near and dear to my heart. I am a granddaughter of Alzheimer's dementia, as well as a daughter of brain cancer, and I have seen firsthand what families and caregivers go through in taking care of a loved one with a variety of brain conditions. I am also a big fan of the neuroscience world, having been a neuro nerd since my undergrad days. I fell in love with the brain. Thanks to my aunt, who is a special educator and got me hooked on the world of speech language pathology. And 10 years into my clinical career, I made the jump back into academia. So my hat's off to all of you fabulous educators who have made such a profound impact on the brain health and the cognitive development of so many future generations throughout your own careers. I am more than happy to talk your ears off about the brain all day, but we have much to cover in the next hour. I would propose this agenda, although it's very flexible. We can spend more time on any of these subjects that appeal most to you. We'll discuss a quick overview of neuroanatomy, as well as touching on the differences between Alzheimer's disease and the other types of dementia that you may or may not have heard about. We'll discuss dementia prevalence and, most importantly, focus on the steps for prevention, which are really practical tools in your toolbox that I hope you'll be able to share with those you love. I'll be more than honored to introduce you to the North Carolina Registry for Brain Health, which is a statewide collaborative initiative I am honored to be a part of here at ECU. And we'll discuss research opportunities right in your own backyards and share some useful resources. I put Q&A at the end, but truly it is sprinkled throughout all of these topics. So as I said, please shout out any questions as we go along or pop them in the chat, and I'll be happy to chat further at the end of the presentation as well. So we'll go ahead and jump right into a quick overview of neuroanatomy. If anyone hasn't had a neuro or neuroanatomy, neurobiology class in the last few years, you've probably recognized a similar graphic to this as far as the different areas of the brain that are responsible and skilled, specialized in different functions. So in our frontal lobe is where our higher level cognitive processes, thinking, planning, organization, decision-making, and emotional regulation live. We have the motor cortex, which is a bit of a headband over the top of your head that controls muscle movement here in the yellow area. The parietal lobe is responsible for sensory integration from all 5 of our senses, but vision in particular lives in the occipital lobe at the back of the brain. The temporal lobe on the side is where our language processing, speech, language, memory, and hearing live. And down at the base in the cerebellum, this purple area is responsible for coordination, fine motor control, and timing in 3-dimensional space. The bottom of the brain is actually the top of the spinal cord. So this pink area is the brain stem that is responsible for our most vital reflexes, breathing, swallowing, heartbeat, etc. And it is very sensitive to any type of damage in the spinal cord, which is also part of the central nervous system. However, this picture is only one tip of the iceberg. What the brain is actually looking like in reality is this fantastic rainbow clown wig that you may have seen. This is a new type of brain imaging, relatively new, I should say, known as a diffusion weighted MRI. And I think it is one of the most beautiful pictures of the brain I have ever seen. What it is representing is the flow of water in our blood vessels throughout the brain in real time. So this is a person in an MRI machine with a live brain thinking in real time as they're taking these images. And it really shows you how complex and how interconnected all these different regions of the brains truly are. We do have this corpus callosum in the middle, which is the bridge that connects the right and the left hemispheres. And it's important to remember the brain is cross-wired. So I want you to think of crisscross applesauce. The right side of your brain controls the left side of your body, and vice versa. The left side of your brain controls the right side of your body, which is why in so many stroke survivors, people experience weakness on the opposite side of their body from the part of the brain that the stroke actually occurred in. And you may have seen that in some of your own relatives or community members. So this is really what our brain is looking like. When we talk about the brain, these neurons and nerve cells and fibers are so intricately interconnected. We have over 100 billion neurons in our brain, which is so many zeros. My brain can't quite wrap around that. And yet we have over 100 trillion connections between all of these nerve cells talking to each other at the speed of light. Your brain only weighs 3 pounds, but it is responsible for everything in the body. So it is truly a supercomputer. I use that term intentionally. With all the artificial intelligence in the world, there is no computer that comes close to what this beautifully organized organ is capable of. Moving on to Alzheimer's disease and other dementias. Oh, did someone have a question? I just heard a boop. Maybe it was my computer talking to me. We'll talk about the types of dementias, particularly focusing on Alzheimer's disease, as right now in June happens to be Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. So it's a very timely golden opportunity for us to discuss this topic. I get a lot of questions when I'm out in the community about what is normal aging versus abnormal. And forgetfulness is a very common experience. We are all human and we all have those blank moments or those words on the tip of our tongue, or forgetting where I put down my keys and having to backtrack in my memory to find them. But there is a difference between what we have in normal aging, where these slips of memory may be very rare, occasional, and infrequent, compared to a disease process like Alzheimer's, where it is a consistent pattern that occurs regularly and increasingly frequently as the brain battles this health condition. And Alzheimer's is not a normal part of aging. I think there can be a lot of misconception about the term. I hear old timers thinking that our grandparents are supposed to lose their memories as they get old, and that is simply not true. Alzheimer's disease is a pathological process that is not a normal part of aging. And the best definition I can share with you is really boiling a lot of scientific concepts down to a shrinking brain. And I think a picture is worth 1,000 words. Oh, yes, ma'am. Was that a question? Oh, no, sorry. I thought I heard someone. I'm sorry. What we have here on the left side of your screen is a healthy, normal 70-year-old brain in the blue. And right next to it, in the purple and green, is a mid-stage, moderate level of Alzheimer's dementia. And you can already notice the significant difference in size between the healthy, normal aging brain and the brain that is battling Alzheimer's. The brain itself is shrinking, almost like if you imagine the brain as a sponge. I know with young children, we often say their brain is like a sponge. They just absorb information so rapidly. And that's technically true. There's a lot of fluid in our brain. However, when we squeeze a sponge and all that water or fluid starts to drain out as the volume shrinks, we notice that there's less and less area for those nerve cells to occupy. And as the brain shrinks over time, On the right side of the screen, you see what was actually on the front page of the New York Times back in 2016. This was one of the first visualizations much of the public had to conceptualize Alzheimer's disease. These blue ventricles, which are full of cerebrospinal fluid, they act as cleansing and shock absorption for the brain internally. In a normal brain, we have a little bit of fluid there in the center. However, as the brain shrinks and fights Alzheimer's disease, you notice that blue fluid in the center expands and enlarges until we end up with this large butterfly shape, which is actually empty space filling up with fluid where the brain used to be. So this is an actual brain that shows what Alzheimer's disease does on the inside. Alzheimer's disease is often misunderstood because it's actually a syndrome, part of this dementia umbrella. And you see this umbrella graphic from the Alzheimer's Association. It refers to a whole spectrum of memory and thinking changes that interfere with our functioning in daily life. Alzheimer's is the most common type of dementia. It accounts for 60 to 80% of all dementia cases. However, there are many other types as well. Lewy body has been in the news, along with frontotemporal dementia, FTD, affecting those frontal and temporal lobes of the brain. Vascular dementia refers to our circulation vascular system, such as folks with strokes that may experience some memory change or memory loss, and then many other diseases like Parkinson's, Huntington's, etc. There is this pool underneath of mixed dementia because it is possible to have more than one type at the same time. So there is a bit of gray area in between these very specific diagnostic categories, but there is also a mixed pathology where more than one type of condition can be happening simultaneously. This little video explains in a bit more detail.
What is Alzheimer's disease? Alzheimer's is a slow, fatal disease of the brain affecting 1 in 10 people over the age of 65. No one is immune. The disease comes on gradually as 2 abnormal protein fragments called plaques and tangles accumulate in the brain and kill brain cells. They start here in the hippocampus, the part of the brain where memories are first formed. Over many years' time, the plaques and tangles slowly destroy the hippocampus, and it becomes harder and harder to form new memories. Simple recollections from a few hours or days ago that the rest of us might take for granted are just not there. After that, more plaques and tangles spread into different regions of the brain, killing cells and compromising function wherever they go. This spreading around is what causes the different stages of Alzheimer's. From the hippocampus, the disease spreads here to the region of the brain where language is processed. When that happens, it gets tougher and tougher to find the right word. Next, the disease creeps toward the front of the brain, where logical thought takes place. Very gradually, a person begins to lose the ability to solve problems, grasp concepts, and make plans. Next, the plaques and tangles invade the part of the brain where emotions are regulated. When this happens, the patient gradually loses control over moods and feelings. After that, the disease moves to where the brain makes sense of things it sees, hears, and smells. In this stage, Alzheimer's wreaks havoc on a person's senses and can spark hallucinations. Eventually, the plaques and tangles erase a person's oldest and most precious memories, which are stored here in the back of the brain. Near the end, the disease compromises a person's balance and coordination. And in the very last stage, it destroys the part of the brain that regulates breathing and the heart. The progression from mild forgetting to death is slow and steady, and takes place over an average of 8 to 10 years. It is relentless and, for now, incurable. Helping your family, friends, and neighbors to better understand Alzheimer's will reduce stigma improve care, and even help the fight for a cure. Thanks for helping to do your part. Learn more at www.aboutalz.org.
Going to bring us back to the neuroscience world for just a moment. That was a bit of an oversimplification, but I think is a really powerful representation of the long-term process of what is happening in the brain with Alzheimer's disease. And these images come to us from the NIA. They are showing us those plaques that he was talking about, the beta amyloids, which are actually an immune response in the brain. The glial cells, think of that translating as glue. They are the sticky cellular matrix or structure that holds all of the nerve cells together. And those can be interrupted when these plaques build up and interrupt the signals from getting through to one brain cell to another. These plaques are also an issue inside where the neurofibrillary tangles or p-tau proteins live inside the nerve cells, and they can actually kill the cells from the inside. So both these plaques and tangles are a problem in Alzheimer's disease. In this type of dementia, as the cells die and the brain shrinks, we see this global atrophy where you see these wrinkles and crinkles that used to be better hydrated in the healthy normal brain we see is starting to lose that volume and shrink down as these cells are lost. And this doesn't happen overnight. A lot of things are on a continuum. Alzheimer's disease in particular progresses from the preclinical stage, which can be 20 or 30 years before someone notices a change in their memory. Those plaques and tangles start to build up and build up gradually more and more over time. When we start to notice changes in our memory, we have this yellow zone. MCI is mild cognitive impairment. And that is often a delicate stage for therapeutic interventions and making sure that we try to slow down or hopefully stop the cognitive changes. However, if they progress as the disease continues, dementia can set on in the mild, moderate, and ultimately severe end-of-life stages where they really interfere with almost every activity that someone needs to do. So the earlier someone can get a diagnosis, the better treatment options they have, the better resources and research opportunities they may be able to access. So we're very passionate about getting the awareness out that folks can do something very early on to prevent or slow down this brain condition. This image comes to us from Dr. Welsh Bomer, who is one of our wonderful registry leaders. She has published many papers on this topic, and it really demonstrates the power of that latent stage. I think of it as our golden window of opportunity to do healthy things to protect and strengthen our brain before we cross that threshold into MCI and further decline into symptomatic or treatment stage for a disease process. So this brings us to a quick shout out. There are many, many other types of dementia, some of which we may not have names for yet, but we are focusing primarily on Alzheimer's today for Alzheimer's Month. However, I do want to recognize these other causes of dementia. You may or may not be familiar with all of them, but from our umbrella graphic before, we do have the frontotemporal FTD type, our Lewy bodies, which are separate cellular issues inside the neuron cells, vascular dementia after a stroke or a cerebrovascular change, as well as traumatic brain injuries, MS, all these diseases and syndromes that can also cause memory loss and memory change, resulting in dementia. So 6 million Americans are living with this disease, and there are over 11 million unpaid caregivers. These folks are the superheroes in the trenches, in our communities. You probably know some yourself, or maybe you are one. They do provide nearly $340 billion of care value in America every year. Tragically, 1 in 3 seniors does die with Alzheimer's or another type of dementia. And the lifetime risk is much higher for women. Ladies, and myself are at twice the risk of developing Alzheimer's as men. So there's much more research needed in this area. Here in North Carolina specifically, we know there are at least 180,000 North Carolinians living with Alzheimer's disease, and this is expected to increase 16.7%, if not more, by 2050. The county level prevalence from the ALZ Association shows our hot spots. You notice this dark purple up in the northeastern quadrant of our state, but the mid-purple regions are not out of the danger zone yet. There is something interesting happening up here in these counties, whether it's related to air, water, soil contamination. There's a lot of research going on right now to better understand why there is such a higher prevalence of Alzheimer's disease in that area, but it does affect people all across our state, from the mountains to the seashore. Again, zooming out to the national scale, we know this is the 6th leading cause of death. It costs our healthcare system over $360 billion annually, and that does not include those 11.5 million unpaid caregivers taking care of loved ones in their own homes. So without a cure, if we can't find a treatment for this thing by 2050, the researchers are projecting we'll be facing over 14 million Americans living with Alzheimer's disease, costing over $1 trillion annually for the health system to take care of them. And that number, again, does not touch over 45 million unpaid caregivers that will be needed or recruited to be taking care of our elders with this condition. So this brings us to where we are today. I see it as two sides of a coin. The bad news is there's no treatment yet that will completely prevent or stop this disease in its tracks. And we have no way to stop it once it has started. However, there are medications and developing under research interventions that can change earlier disease progression and lessen the severity of symptoms for treatment over time. The further good news is that we have come so far in the scientific understanding, the biology of the disease. Those brain images I showed you a few slides back, those weren't around when I was in grad school. So the technology has evolved so rapidly, making earlier diagnosis and further treatment options possible. So we have many evidence-based approaches that we now know are proven to lower our risk factors and promote brain health and healthy cognition throughout life. So that's what I am overjoyed to share with you today, our 7 steps of dementia prevention. This is something that brings up a lot of good conversation in families, in communities, in different groups and organizations I'm honored to present for. We do have 7 steps that can be done now. You may already be doing some of these, and I hope you'll build on them going forward to reduce your own risk of disease and have a positive impact on your memory. This infographic is from the North Carolina Registry for Brain Health website. On the website, you can actually click on each of these bubbles to learn more about the research and resources in any of these areas that are most interesting to you. But we'll do a quick overview of all 7 today. And the first step is changing what can be changed. This includes a change in our mindset. None of us are powerless as we age, even though there can be a little bit of, oh, well, it's thought to be a normal part of aging in my grandparents' generation, which we now know is not the case. Changing our mindset about preventative measures that we can do earlier in life. We all have this responsibility to maintain our health because there is so much, the wealth of knowledge and wisdom and experience that our elders have to share with the younger generations, and their contributions to society cannot be overlooked. We have great European models where there are more societal or cultural supports for active and inclusive aging. Ageism is a very real phenomenon in our youth-centric American culture, but we know it is important to not just delay exiting employment for those who want to and are able to continue working, but even more importantly, to encourage an active and engaged life following retirement, whether that's through volunteering, continuing to teach in all of your many educational capacities and all the hats that you wear, or just learning something new every day and sharing that knowledge with others, because knowledge is power. Step 2 is focusing on wellness. And this is where we talk about chronic health conditions because it is vitally important to treat what can be treated. We know that smoking does a lot of damage, not just to our lungs, but also to our heart and our brain. It's important to reduce or eliminate alcohol and other substance consumption and managing your health conditions relating to heart disease. There is an immense connection between the heart and the brain. And we hear what's good for the heart is good for the brain, and vice versa. Those two organs work together and are constantly talking to each other with every heartbeat. So it's so important to take care of your heart, especially if you have a family history of any vascular risks, hypertension, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, or diabetes. I've heard many neurologists refer to Alzheimer's disease as diabetes type 3 because there is such a strong correlation between lifelong uncontrolled blood sugar levels and brain disease as we age. I also encourage, especially our ladies, check your thyroids, make sure all those hormones are doing well pre and post menopause, and please take care of your teeth. Dental disease is a major risk factor for brain plaque buildup, just like the plaque on our teeth builds up if we don't brush and clean and floss regularly. Our gums are a direct link to our bloodstream, and our bloodstream carries those contaminants or those infections straight to our brain. So it's really important to take care of our teeth and our gums. Sleep is highly underrated. I think it's one of the most powerful gifts that keeps on giving to your brain. If you can find a way to get an extra REM cycle or take good care of your sleep habits and sleep hygiene, to have a good routine at bedtime, make sure that you're using a CPAP or BiPAP if there's any sleep apnea, because your brain needs that oxygen at night just as much as it does during the day. Pain and arthritis can prevent people from sleeping. So pain management is another big piece of the sleep puzzle. Mental health cannot be overlooked either. It's so important to discuss and treat and explore options with your providers to manage anxiety, depression, any other mental health conditions that may run in your family. And as we age, hearing and vision is something that does tend to decline a bit, but it's so important to get those checked every year. Just something as simple as wearing hearing aids can reduce your risk of developing dementia. The research is pretty phenomenal in that area. So make sure you have clear vision to prevent falls. Falls are the #1 cause of brain injury, as well as the highest risk for folks over the age of 50. So making sure your vision, your depth perception is all good, as well as your ears, will take good care of your brain. Refers to getting a move on, which is the importance of physical activity. And I say activity, not exercise. I'm not sure if any of you like to go to the gym as much as I do, which is not very much, but being active is something that we can all do and incorporate into our everyday routines. The World Health Organization does have these global recommendations for seniors specifically on improving and increasing physical activity levels through aerobic exercise, whether that's walking, jogging, biking, dancing is one of my favorite. Music is great for the brain, so that's a win-win. If you have some songs that you love, just get up and move to it. They recommend a minimum of 30 minutes, 5 days a week. Resistance training is also important for muscle maintenance as we get older. Sarcopenia or muscle loss can happen in addition to brain cell loss. So we want to keep our muscles strong through weightlifting and calisthenics. And for fall prevention, especially, it is so important to stay flexible and incorporate balance exercises to prevent falls, whether that's yoga, Tai Chi, stretching. There are many different balance and flexibility activities that you may enjoy. And the more fun it is, the less of a chore it is. So make it something fun and something that you would enjoy doing. 4 is all about nutrition. So you've probably heard we are what we eat, and there is a kernel of truth in that. It is so important that we nourish our body and our brain by eating healthy throughout life. We know that a healthy diet does protect us from cardiovascular heart disease. And as I mentioned before, there's a very strong link between the heart and the brain. So that healthy diet also protects your brain by reducing your risk of strokes or Alzheimer's and other brain conditions. Those antioxidants, when we eat lots of healthy fruits and vegetables, Low processed foods. There's a lot of research into plant-based diets being very healthy for the brain, but that protects us from oxidative stress. The hormones in our stress levels, our cortisol over time can injure the brain as well. So using our antioxidants to balance out that oxidative stress is something that our brain really appreciates. And there are some very helpful and practical tips on the NIH and NIA websites relating to diet, nutrition, and health. Of course, if you do have any health conditions, it's important to check with a registered dietitian or your doctor as far as foods to avoid or new things to incorporate. But this, again, doesn't happen overnight. Little by little, baby steps add up to a lot in the long run. So whether we get rid of the white stuff, as my nutritionist friends say, any, bleached flours, sugars, salts, those are just not good for our blood pressure, our heart, or our brain. Making the switch to whole grains as much as possible. Fiber, adding fish into the diet, get those omega-3s, which protect the brain, and eat healthy fruit or veggie snacks, and avoiding fried foods as much as possible. These are very dense things that I hope some of you are already doing, but you can always expand and add more tools to the nutrition toolbox for brain health. Step 5 is finding new challenges. And I love this lady jumping out of a plane. Has anyone here gone skydiving before? I am not that brave. I really hope someone is less afraid of heights than me. But it is so important to keep challenging yourself. And I don't mean jumping out of a plane, but stretching beyond your comfort zone, getting out of your comfort zone and trying new things, taking classes, learning something new every day. The brain is a bit like a muscle. We hear from our PT and exercise physiology colleagues, if we don't use it, we lose it in our muscles, right? That's true for our brain. If we don't use it, we may lose it. So we want to exercise and use our brain by learning something new every day. These are just some examples of activities folks enjoy, stretching their boundaries and comfort zones to build new connections in the brain, which is referred to as neuroplasticity. And this is something that is a superpower in the brain. It is capable of growing new connections between existing nerve cells, even up to age 100. So it's really important to keep learning things and challenging yourself throughout life. 6 is all about emotional well-being, and there's a large overlap on this Venn diagram with mental health. We have a lot of evidence from our animal models about those stress hormones, increasing that risk of cognitive decline and dementia later in life. We've already touched on sleep and how important stress levels and sleep are for our brain health. Those deep REM cycles are really when the brain is able to recharge its mental batteries. We all know what happens to our laptop or our cell phone if we don't plug it in to charge every 24 hours, right? The brain runs on electricity, less than a 25-watt light bulb, but it still runs on electricity, and we need to rest and recharge those mental batteries. That also reduces the buildup of plaques and tangles and those toxic molecules in the brain. And there's many methods for reducing stress. If you're a social butterfly, getting out and socializing or being outside in nature, that's one of my happy places. Pet therapy is a wonderful thing if you have any animals in your life. But meditation, prayer, and mindfulness practices can be really helpful for mindfulness-based stress reduction techniques that can be very beneficial for our emotional well-being. And last but certainly not least, step 7 is my call to action, because I do believe that the cure for Alzheimer's is out there and we're going to find it someday soon, but it will take all of us. So I invite everyone on this call to think about becoming a part of the solution through participating in research, through sharing research, through staying up to date on the latest and greatest breakthroughs in the brain health world. As I said, our medical science and technology has come such a long way in the last 30 years, even though there's not going to be a one-size-fits-all magic pill that works for everyone. We're getting closer and closer to finding real solutions for this disease, and preventing it, which is the most important thing, is only going to be proven or discovered through further research aimed at treatments that we can start early in life, before we cross that threshold into the MCI zone, and make sure we're stabilizing the biomarkers, reducing those buildups of the plaques and tangles. Aging is our number one risk factor, and I don't know a single human on this planet with a brain who is immune to the passing of time. So as we age, we are all at risk, and we will all be affected either directly or indirectly by this condition. So this is where our North Carolina Registry for Brain Health slogan, "Be informed and get involved," comes into light. It is my honor to introduce you if you haven't already heard of. Oh, yes, ma'am. Was that a question? Oh, maybe not. False alarm.
There's a question in the chat. You probably can't
Oh,
see the chat.
yes. Sorry, I'm going to pop up the box. Reading. Yes, reading is my favorite hobby for learning new things every day. That hand-eye coordination can also translate into many other hobbies or practices, whether they're athletic pursuits, musical pursuits. There's so much that comes into our brain through our eyes, and reading and learning is one of the best ways to keep stretching and expanding your knowledge base, your neuro vocabulary if you're interested in learning more about this area. Reading and literacy is something that I think is a bit of a challenge for our younger kiddos, especially when they're first learning phonetics and things like that. So making sure we set them up for success early in life by having a book club or a reading buddy to compare notes and discuss and brainstorm and talk about the things you're learning can be really helpful for brain health. Thank you for that suggestion. Any other questions before we move on? All right, I'm going to transition here into our North Carolina Registry. If you have not heard of us, we are a friendly network, likely right in your own backyard, and we are very passionate advocates for brain health. This is a regional registry for people all across the state, and we are a collaborative network of institutions providing access to research, particularly our underserved and rural communities. We're here to support research through accelerating clinical studies and allowing a network for different types of research to develop interventional trials across the state of North Carolina. We're also very passionate about education and providing accurate, up-to-date, reliable, research-based information on optimizing brain health, advances as far as prevention and treatment of neurodegenerative diseases, and my favorite is the research opportunities and all the resources we have to share to advance lifelong brain health for everyone across the state. This is who we are across our little map here. If you live in any of these areas or have colleagues at any of these institutions, I'm in the purple box at ECU with the Pirates here in Greenville, but we have wonderful collaborators in the Triangle, Duke, UNC Chapel Hill, and out further west are wonderful teams at Wake Forest School of Medicine and NCA&T. We are all working together to share resources and get the word out, as well as opportunities for research all over North Carolina. So we partner with communities as well as individuals to highlight the goals of the North Carolina Consortium for Brain Health and Aging. It's a little bit of a mouthful, but we have many wonderful partners in many communities all working together to improve brain health and stay informed. This is our site. If you have a chance to visit ncbrainhealth.org, there is an easy join button here where you can click, put in your basic contact information, and receive our monthly newsletters if you would like to stay in the loop and up to date on all of the wonderful research, resources, and events happening near you, all centered around brain health. This is a quick snapshot who had joined as of March. There's probably closer to 13,000 joining now, but we are a largely female cohort. As you can see, we have a diverse representation in age, from 18 all the way up to 100 plus. So we're very delighted that this is an intergenerational initiative. And we are also very racially diverse. We're glad to have representation from our African American, Asian, Native American, and Hispanic Latino communities. We recently launched a fully Spanish website with further resources and research opportunities on the horizon. As well as for education, most of our participants have some level of college education, but that is not a requirement whatsoever. Everyone is welcome and warmly invited to join us on the Brain Health Quest. So some current opportunities, if you are not currently in any research studies, I've been in several myself and they are so much fun. I learn something new every time. We have some currently enrolling studies on our website that you can explore. We have studies for people who do have memory problems, studies for caregivers, if you are a caregiver of someone or a loved one with dementia. And we have many studies for people with normal, healthy brain aging and no memory trouble at all. So there are many different research projects happening right now in the state of North Carolina. This is just a sampling. There will be more added in the future. So please check our website or sign up for our newsletter to stay up to date on all of the research studies that will be coming up not too soon in a city near you. Hopefully we'll be having a virtual, our caregiver study is fully remote, so you do not need to travel or visit a site. Many of these studies do offer some compensation if you do need to travel to one of the university locations. However, we are open and supportive for all caregivers, teams, and community groups that would like to learn more about the research and support the studies that are currently going on.
Another
Julie,
question
there's
on-
a in the
Excuse me.
chat.
Oh, thank you. Online tests claiming to determine if a person has early signs for a fee. I'm not sure how reliable, depending on which online test they are trying to take. The best way to go and get a screening would be through an outpatient rehab center neurology clinic. If you have a neuropsychologist, they can do much more advanced and detailed testing. But speech language pathologists do a lot of cognitive evaluations and treatment as well. There are lots of professionals that can help you with getting an accurate and evidence-based screening with reliable research data to tell whether this is something that is a red flag, a yellow flag, or a green flag for you or someone you know. Great question. Please don't pay anything extra for those online screenings. They are most likely free, available in an app. However, the best way to tell is to go to a professional who specializes in this field and get a comprehensive evaluation, more than just a screening, if you have any concerns. Thank you for that question. Do we have any others? All right, I'm going to jump into resources next. I want to be mindful of our time and leave plenty of time for discussion at the end. But once again, just sharing from our website that you can go to ncbrainhealth.org and click any of these rainbow bubbles to learn more about all of the topics we touched on today in much more detail. Our 7 Steps for Brain Health is interactive on the website. We also have a wonderful brain health checklist, and I use this a lot with my own patients in the clinical world to open the door to having conversations about all these different areas and well-being and health promotion practices that will support your brain health at all ages. We're never too young and we're never too old to start learning about brain health and prioritizing our brain health. So I encourage you to download this checklist. It's a free PDF also on the website, and look over that for ideas or opportunities for you and your families to encourage good brain healthy habits at all ages. I do have to give a shout out. We have wonderful, not just quarterly, but monthly brain health newsletters now, because there is so much to learn and so much research happening in this field. We have a quick overview of a past newsletter for you. We have some major headlines, helpful resources, upcoming events, and practical tools that you can use in your everyday life to keep your brain healthy. Our website also has a resources tab. If you click on resources at the top of that web page, you will find a plethora of helpful websites, organizations, agencies, all over the state, national, and state level resources to support brain health, caregivers, and dementia warriors in our communities. In addition to our North Carolina registry, our website and our 919 number you can call to ask questions or get information about any of the research studies we presently have going on. Here in Greenville, if you're in the eastern area, we have the Monk Geriatric Center in Greenville, but there may be a geriatric center or neuropsychologist clinic near you for further memory and cognitive evaluation and treatment. Project CARE is a wonderful organization. I love their acronym. It stands for Caregiver Alternatives to Running on Empty. And it is so important to fill our own cup before we pour into others as caregivers. Caregiving is a really big job. So please know, caregivers, I see you and you are not alone. There is such a big network here to support you. They have respite care and in-home services to take care of your loved ones who may be having some memory challenges. AARP is a great group, as well as our Alzheimer's Association. I am part of the Eastern chapter, but there is a Western chapter for our friends in the mountains as well. They have a wonderful community resource finder where you can go type in your zip code and it will pull up a bunch of local medical, healthcare, home health, other services that can be useful for families facing dementia. Your local area agency on aging also offers free classes, free support groups, all great connections for the community. If you are looking to get out and about or make some new friends, they're a very social group as well. The Dementia Alliance of North Carolina, their acronym is DANCE. They have a great music and memory program. Since music is also great for the brain, if you would like to reach out for that. The Duke Family Support Program has free webinars, trainings, and lectures by experts in the brain health field every month, and they are fantastic. If you visit their website, you can view recordings of past topics they've shared and access further resources for you and your loved ones. This is just a final reminder of our URL, link to our website, and free number to call with any questions. I am always available as a resource to help connect you to other groups or teams that may be able to help and assist you in your brain health journey. If there are any further questions, comments, or things you're just curious about and would like to discuss, I would love to use our remaining time to open the floor and just have some dialogue about whatever appeals or interests you all the most. I'll share my contact information, so even if you are not wanting to chat today, you can always email or call me at your convenience if you think of a question after this session. Please know that I remain fully available and always excited to connect with another brain health champion. If there are resources or research I can share with you to pass on to others, it would be my privilege. I really appreciate your time and thank you so much for having me today.
There is a hand up, Julie.
Oh, yes. Please come off mute. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here.
Okay, so this is Colleen Lanier. It's just a comment. I heard them talking with Dick Van Dyke recently. They did an interview and he's 98 years old, just won an Emmy Award. And
he is amazing.
He is. They said, what do you attribute your activity at your age to? And he said, going to the gym. That's the best thing I've done for myself. So I think that's a good thing for us to know to focus on, not doing it.
Definitely. That physical activity piece of the puzzle, that exercise, cardio exercise, again, relates to brain health and improving our circulation because that carries the blood and oxygen to our brain. An interesting fun fact I learned recently is even though our brain is only 3 pounds, it is only a small part of the body, it actually uses over 20% of the oxygen in our bloodstream because it takes a lot of that fuel for our supercomputers to run smoothly in controlling all of our organs and muscles and bones, etc. So that is something to consider when you're doing deep breathing or exercise of any kind. You are actually pumping that fuel and that oxygen to your brain, as well as strengthening your body and preventing fall risk. So that's a win-win. Great tip from Mr. Van Dyke. Thank you for sharing.
Julie, I have a question. You mentioned
ma'am.
fluid in the brain. I'm wondering if there's any correlation or information or recommendations in terms of amount of water consumption per day in relation to brain health. I didn't seem to find it there in the presentation, even though it's a massive amount of information you have shared with us.
Oh, I hope it was helpful, and I hope it wasn't too much information. I certainly don't want anyone to be overwhelmed, but there is so much to learn in this area. Yes, hydration is really important. I know many folks are chronically dehydrated and they just don't realize it. We do tend to lose that thirst instinct or feeling as we get older and older, sometimes we just don't feel as thirsty. However, even when it's not the heat of the summer and we're not actively sweltering with all the wonderful humidity that we have here near the coast, we do want to make sure folks are drinking at least 6 to 8 glasses of water every day. If you are on dialysis or have any kidney issues, definitely go with your physician's recommendations as far as fluid intake, because it's important to balance those fluid levels with salt levels and other hormones as well. But 6 to 8 glasses is the minimum. If I'm really active, or sweating a lot and outdoors, I'll make sure to drink more than that and actually set an alarm on my phone to remind myself to stop and take a water break. I try to never leave the house without a water bottle. That's just a practical, everyday practice that I've incorporated to make sure I don't accidentally get dehydrated when I'm out and about running all over. So yes, excellent question. Hydration goes hand in hand with nutrition. We are what we eat, but our body is also 80% water, so they say. So it's really important not to get dehydrated. Sometimes cognitive changes or memory problems can actually be a symptom of malnutrition and dehydration. So that's a really quick fix and an easier one to just eat healthy and drink enough fluids to support our brain functioning. Any other questions? I see something in the chat. I'm going to pop this open here and make sure I have not missed anybody. I don't see any other questions in the chat, but I am happy to hang around a few more minutes if you would like to chat further. If you live anywhere near Greenville, I invite everyone to come join us on June 20th. We'll be hosting the longest line dance. For the solstice, we have our Alzheimer's Association partners coming out for the longest day celebration, which supports caregivers of dementia and Alzheimer's warriors through fundraising and community building activities. So we'll be having an intergenerational line dance and ice cream social, along with a resource fair. If you would like to come out in person to our Council on Aging off of County Home Road, we would love to see you. Thank you so much once again for having me today. I really appreciate your valuable time and hope that this information was helpful. As I said, our website, our team, me personally, please don't hesitate to shoot me an email or call if there are any follow-up questions I can address for you all.
Thank you very much, Julie. We have a question. This video will be available. I've been recording, so it will appear on our website, ncrsp.org. For our members to continue to watch it and to get more resources. And thank you so much for all you've provided today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to meet you all online, and I hope I'll get to meet you in person one of these days.
Thank you, Julia. Your enthusiasm and your passion just comes straight through in everything that I have. I mean, in contacting you and talking with you, and certainly in your presentation today. And it has been full of information. I've been writing my notes furiously over here on the side and getting topics for our next sessions that we're having. We actually do have a session coming up in July, on July the 10th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which will be on healthy living for your body and your brain. So we'll be following up with trying to take care of our brains after your presentation today. And I made note, and I'll see if I can share a couple of these things through our email line as of communication as well, so that this wonderful audience that we've had today can benefit from all that you've had to share today. I do want to thank our staff for the support that they give to us all the time in setting these things up. And I don't have to do the background technical part of this. So that big hand for our staff.
Yes.
And I'd like to thank our participants today for joining in with us. And I hope you will to see you again on the second Wednesday of July, again at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We do try to kind of alternate so we can hit different groups at the time, but this is the summertime, and I know that it can be a time that when it's time to shell peas and butter beans and put things in the freezer, that we do appreciate your time as well today. And we hope that you continue to spread the word and take advantage of every opportunity that comes along the way to help us senior citizens have a good and happy quality of life in our senior years. We do appreciate that so very, very much. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Have a wonderful rest of the week, everybody.
You too.